As young children, we learn to be afraid of things. Fear of the lights being off, fear of the boogeyman, or in the case of my grandson, fear of the Grinch. But as adults, we also wrestle with many different types of fears: the fear of failing, the fear of making bad choices, the fear of being alone, and the fear of dying. Fear can be a crippling agent that the enemy throws in your life to keep you down and defeated. But what is fear? Fear is defined as being apprehensive with anxiety or alarm. In today's reflection, found in chapter 1 of Joshua and in many other parts of this book, God commands Joshua, a military sergeant, to be of good courage and not to fear what lays ahead for him. God bless you. This is your sister Margarita Figueroa with a reflection title, Didn't I Tell You Not to Be Afraid, but of Strong Courage? But who was Joshua? And why did God have to repeat this inspiring verse to him 7 times in this short book called none other than Joshua? To understand this historical event, we need to read the book before the book of Joshua.
The book of Joshua. Let's back up and remember the story so far. So God chose Abraham, and then his family became the people of Israel, who are then enslaved down in Egypt. And so through Moses, God rescued Israel out of Egypt. He made a covenant with them at Mount Sinai, and he brought them through the wilderness. So Israel then camped outside the promised land, and Moses called them to obey God's commands so that they could show all the other nations what God is like. The book of Joshua picks up right after Moses has died and Israel's ready to enter the land.
And in the last chapters, we see a shift beginning, a closing of one door and the opening of a new one, the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. God closes doors to open new ones, sometimes because what was in your life before is not intended or meant to be in what comes next. Moses, a great leader who, through the power of God and the guidance of God, brought the people out of Egypt, out of slavery. They were enslaved for over 400 years, and he helped them cross the Red Sea safely. But he was of old age, and because of an impulsive act, he could not take the people of Israel to their next level, which was to live in a land that had abundant food and provision. So God had to provide a new leader. Joshua, son of Nun, was this chosen person. Joshua was an amazing general, skilled soldier who was faithful to God and to Moses, which we could see when he obeys Moses and goes along with 11 other men to spy on this new land God promised them. They found that the land was inhabited by giants, and 10 of these men ran back in fear, saying, "Let's go, we can't take these men on." Yet Joshua and Caleb urged the leader and others to take the land. There will always be people around you who will try to discourage you and fill you with fear. But God tells you, as he told Joshua, get up, rise, and go. To Joshua, it was to get up and go and conquer the land he had promised them. To you, it might be get up from your depression. Get up from your desire to give up and give in. When we are discouraged, all we want to do is crawl up in a ball and cry. Cry and use excuses of why we cannot or should not keep trying. But God says, be of courage. Courage is defined as the ability to do something that frightens you. If Joshua was such a great military general, why did God have to repeat to him to have courage and not to be afraid? Joshua was going to face new challenges, and the unknown can be frightening. Maybe you have a new challenge that brings on worries or fear or anxiety. Joshua now had the responsibility of leading an entire nation into a new land. You might be a mother with the responsibility to lead your children on the right path. You might be a leader or a pastor with the responsibility to lead your members to green pastures. You might be a husband or a young father with the responsibility to lead your family. He had to follow the shoes of a great leader, and there was the fear that people would compare. There is always someone comparing. Someone comparing children. Why can't you be like your brother? Children who compare their parents. I love mom or I love dad more because, bosses who compare employees, relationships that compare the past from the present, and there is the tendency to be afraid of not measuring up. The enemy was the people in the land. They were strong and they were big, and they were not just going to give up the land. Some blessings you must be prepared to fight for. It's not going to be handed to you. We prepare for spiritual battles by spiritual means, in prayer, fasting, and asking God to protect us. God tells Joshua to remain looking and being focused on the word. In other words, don't focus on what you're seeing around you going on. Focus on what God has promised you. Joshua also had to face natural obstacles, such as the Jordan River. The Jordan River, in certain times of the year, would be overflowing, and anyone who would try to pass through it would possibly drown. There was also the wall of Jericho, an unpenetrable wall made by a man. Joshua was over his head. He had to take several million difficult people, yes, I did say difficult people, into the midst of trouble and possible death. He definitely had reasons to be afraid and worried, as you might have things going on in your life in this moment that feels over your head. But fear and faith cannot coexist together. Joshua was to step up and take charge and be the leader God saw in him. I challenge you today to step up and defy the enemy. Take charge of your life. Take charge of your choices and trust God to guide you. How can I trust God can help me when my life is falling apart, when everything seems hopeless? Well, get into action. Keep God's promises close to your heart. Trust Him. In the book of Joshua, we see how this leader overcomes obstacles and crosses the Jordan River, brings down an unpenetrable wall by solely shouting and praising God, and defends and defeats the enemy because he had the courage to trust God. If you don't know God but would like to know Him or get into action, be of strong courage and find a church near you that can help you by showing you the Word. And learn more about the story of Joshua and how God gave him the victory over all his enemies. God bless you.